Everybody, it's morning. I guess it's Diaz that I'm buenoing you at. Tuesdays are for anti-heroes, so all the heroism you brought to the live stream yesterday, just leave it at home today. We don't want any heroism today. Because Monday is for heroes. Tuesday is for anti-heroes. Wednesday, of course, is for straight up villains. A little bit different than an anti-hero. You might think an anti-hero would be the opposite of a hero and therefore a villain. No, not quite. An anti-hero is more hero than a villain is. I've got a villain today in my life. It's called chores. Got a number of activities I need to do. A number of tasks I need to complete. I woke up about 20 to 6 this morning. It makes for a good night's sleep. See what Winston's mom has to say. Well, today's for anti-heroes, though, Winston's mom. Not for heroes. So today I have to be your favorite anti-hero of streaming. Don't worry, there's a difference between an anti-hero and a villain. So, I slept extremely well last night. Got a full night's sleep. But you can see I'm still looking a little tired here. Still looking like an old man with tiredness wrinkles. A great compilation clip of Martin Short dissing Steve Martin. That guy wrote that horrible Martin Short article and has just been reamed by the internet, interestingly. Is there anything going on today in town or anything? Not that I know of. I don't have any plans to do anything fun, really. We gotta go to town, we gotta go to the gas station and fill up the 5-gallon gas tanks. And I need to fill up my car. So I'll probably get cash out, fill up the gas cans with cash, fill up the car with the card. Because I think if I try to use the card twice, I don't want to put 89 in the gas cans, although I could, I guess. But it's more expensive, you know. So I want to fill up the gas cans with 87 because my gas-powered tools, like the generator and the power washer, the chainsaw, I guess, they don't need 89. It's about $5 a gallon. A little over for 90, 91. In some places in California now you can get 85. I've never gotten it, but I didn't think you could get lower than 87 until one day I saw this gas station that had 85. Octane is what I'm talking about. If you want the units, not just the number, that's fine. I can respect that. I got a cold weather today. Wow, your gas is cheap. I bet your cigarettes are cheaper too. Well, octane is what automobile gas is measured at, you know. You either have 87, 89, or 91 historically. Regular, medium, and like high performance, you know. My car only takes 91. You're supposed to only put 91 in it because it's a Mini Cooper. Now, I got a great deal on cigarettes because I happen to live next to this place that's got like the cheapest cigarettes in all of California. No, there's no difference. It's just lawnmowers don't need high octane. So you could put an 85 in a lawnmower and it would operate fine, I'm sure. But performance cars, which my Mini Cooper can hardly be called that. You know, it's a four-door Mini Cooper. It doesn't have much zip to it. It's dramatically less zippy than my dad's old two-door Mini Cooper was. I drove that. I was like, "Fuck! Is that what these cars are supposed to be like?" I think that thing had some fucking get up and go to it. But yeah, I got a carton of cigarettes out the door. Uh, yeah, yours is much cheaper. I got a carton of cigarettes out the door, tax and everything, for $109.73 at Boot Jack. That's about as cheap as you can ever find it in California. So yeah, I paid $2 more per gallon of gas and $3 more per pack of cigarette. That's the disadvantage of living in California, I guess. But there are plenty of advantages to living here too. Number one advantage is Rachel sure seems happy. Rachel seems very pleased with her life, you know. A carton is $26? Oh my god. Why do you smoke such gross cigarettes is my first question. Why? What makes you smoke such gross cigarettes? Seneca menthols? Ugh. Be glad you don't live in California. You can't get menthols here anymore. Menthols are illegal. Because, you know, the good voters of California realized, hey, we need to protect black people from smoking. Black people like menthols. Yeah, it's like the most offensive ad campaign in history. Seneca Menthol 100. Hundreds is fine. I can live with the hundreds, but Seneca, I've never even heard of them. And menthols. You quit smoking for almost 3 decades and then you started smoking again? What made you start smoking again after 3 decades of quitting? I quit for 10 years from 21 to 31. I started smoking again when I started smoking again after my first divorce. Oh wow, look everybody, Mindy's here. Hi Mindy. What a shock to see you. Where have you been? Apparently, Mindy's Club made it a short yesterday. It's true. Mindy's Club made it short. You can see it yourself if you want. I'll put a link to it. There it is. So I've decided I'm going to start using Summer's Eve by Massingale because my vagina is starting to be a little bit stinky. Just a little bit. Not as bad as Tiffany's. Summer's Eve by Massingale. Rachel pointed out that they don't really seem to do that anymore in the modern world where you have a product that has a product name, but it's by something else, you know? Like Summer's Eve by Massingale. Why isn't Summer's Eve just by Summer's Eve, you know? Oh my God, honey. I smell like a summer's eve around here. Oh, sweetie, that's just my vagina. Thanks to Summer's Eve by Massingale. Yeah, it smells kind of like fireflies and barbecue. Fireflies and barbecue. That's what Summer's Eve by Massingale smells like, I'm assuming. Yes, if you remember the commercials, there was like this teenage girl, right? And she was riding on a boat with her mom. And they were, just yachting in the bay as usual. And and the teen girl would say to her mom, "Mom, do you ever feel not so fresh?" And the mom would say, "Yes, honey. That's when I use Summer's Eve by Massingale." The thing to remember, I think that we always forget, is men are obsessed with their penis size, right? Is that a woman's vagina is always bigger than your penis. Otherwise, you couldn't fit it in there. Well, those commercials taught teens around the country, hey, I want my puss to smell like a summer's eve. They should introduce a special version of Summer's Eve by Massingale called Summer's Eve by Massingale 4th of July. You know what birth control is not unhealthy for women? Here I am. Pulling out. That's not unhealthy. But it's not supposed to be for birth control. It's supposed to be for stinky vagina syndrome. I wonder what happened to the Massengale company. Do they still make things? Oh, if you want to have children, well, then you shouldn't pull out. Because your cum won't make them pregnant unless it's inside their body.
Okay, Mom, we can't have new exciting douches. Oh, two Massengill vinegar and water douches? Right, new extra cleansing and extra mild. Now we have a choice of Massengill freshness. What's the difference? New extra cleansing. The only vinegar and water with PuraClean. PuraClean for effective cleansing. And extra mild. The only douche with no additives. I've always trusted Massengill. Extra mild for me. I choose extra cleansing. Trust Massengill, the leader for 73 years.
Okay? So it's time for you to trust Massengale. No, Hero Lamb. Those women are caring about the important issue of vaginal freshness. I would just sit there and soak up that extended conversation about Massengale products. You know, granted, they're using kind of a shitty douche because they're not using Summer's Eve. Summer's Eve by Massengale. Videos.
Freshest. A walk through the woods on an early spring morning. Freshest. A gentle breeze that takes you by surprise. Fresh is simple with Summer's Eve, the most convenient disposable douche you can buy. This exclusive one-piece unit means there's nothing to assemble, and it's available in 2 fragrances or vinegar and water, the solution doctors recommend. With Summer's Eve, freshness has never been simpler.
Oh, freshness. Well, what you should Google, Winston's mom, is what should I do if I feel not so fresh? Do you ever feel not so fresh?
Do you ever feel, not so fresh? Sure, that's why I douche. But only with natural ingredients. Who has natural ingredients? Massengale. They have vinegar and water or baking soda. Trust Massengale to help you feel naturally fresh.
There it is. There's the yachting commercial. They're out yachting, of course, because that's what moms and daughters do. And the daughter's concerned. Naturally, she's been smelling her crotch recently, and it stinks like death. But she doesn't want to tell her mom. She doesn't want to just ask her mom straight out. Hey, mom, does your pussy ever smell like something died in there? So she chooses a more polite way of saying it, you know. If you ever felt not so fresh. Because let's be honest with ourselves. Who among us has not sometimes felt not so fresh? Like, I try to douche my butthole at least once a day because I consistently feel it's like not so fresh down there. It could be so much more fresh. So, these are kind of women who plan fun, like, okay, now it's time we have fun. We have exactly 1 hour and 14 minutes after fun time. We can focus on them, we'll have planned sexual intercourse. Sounds like an ESFJ. It definitely sounds like an ESFJ. Hey, 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 new groove. Peanut butter to you too. You and me both, peanut butter. I'll bring this, I'll bring this. I think I'll even brag this. I can get all of this stuff without dropping it. That's a big F. Okay. We got all of this stuff. All of the stuff that I need. Okay. Now that we're inside the garage, lots of important things can happen. First of all, I'm pretty sure the other night, I think I was live streaming at the time. No, maybe I wasn't. Maybe I was. I don't remember. But I went outside, right, to smoke a cigarette, and I was like, what is that? No, I was live streaming. I must have been. Anyway, I'm like, what is that sound there? There's something moving on the hill right in front of me, but I can't see anything because I don't have any light or whatever. I'm pretty damn sure that fucking thing was a bear. I went out yesterday and I looked at the hill where I'd heard the sound. And there's this spot where all the grass was pushed down, like right at the top of the hill, right, almost like walking to where the trash cans were. Which they weren't there at the time, by the way, so the bear wasn't going for the trash, They were up on the street. Anyway, so I walked outside there, broke back there, I was smoking a cigarette, and I heard this sound. What is that over there? What is that? All the dogs were barking, the people on either side were like looking with flashlights. It was a bear. I'm pretty sure. So I was probably like within 5 feet of a bear that night. And I didn't have a flashlight with me, so I was just like, what is that sound? Unfortunately, I went inside to get a flashlight because, bear could have mauled me. You don't want to get that close to a bear. I even closed the side garage door behind me. By the time I walked back in to get a flashlight, I realized maybe this is not so safe. Oh, I got a poop about ready to fall out of my butt. I gotta go make that poop before we do anything else. I'm going to make that poop all night. Meow, 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 meow. Where did I put my coffee? I know I had it in my hand, didn't I? along with all this other stuff? Or maybe I didn't. Well, regardless, I have to go poo right now. So let's go inside and go poo. The cigarette will have to be finished later. I didn't expect such a sudden and pressing poo to take over my life. To take over my butt, you could say. But it has. It's taken over my butt in a way that requires immediate attention. There's some light for you. And here's some light for me. Oh. Oh. Hello, Mr. Man. Of course, trouble comes in to guard. I think his primary goal is keeping Capillo out of the bathroom. If it were up to trouble, Capillo would never get any attention from either Rachel or me. It would be all trouble all the time. Oh yes, Mr. Man. What a handsome boy you are. What a special gentleman. Yes. Hello. Hello. Who's got a dirty nose? You do, yes. Oh, yes. What a good kitty. What an important man. That's what I would call a goodly poo. It's not massive, but it's fairly ample. And you don't want to sit down and go poo and just poop out a couple of little poo balls, you know. You want to vacate the premises entirely. Apparently, I read, or either heard on a news program, or I read, I guess I must have read it, I don't ever really watch any news programs, but that there are laxative shortages because Americans are using so many laxatives. Well, I do have some constipation problems sometimes, but I haven't had them lately. I've been pooping well every day. Cause I poop like a champion, my friend. Poop coming out my back end. Yes, I poop like a champion. Poop like a champion. No time for Peters, 'cause I poop so well. Yes, I poop. I had to open a second roll of toilet paper. Because I'm of the school of thought that says you wipe until there's not even the tiniest bit of Annie Brown on the paper. There. I'm all done. Pretty soon I'll be back and better than ever. I'm annoyed by the writer's strike in Hollywood. You know why? Because fuck those people. Like, just stop having unions. Let the free market decide what your shit's worth. I guess if I were a writer for Hollywood, it'd feel different. I've already watched you eat this morning, Mr. Man. I need to replace the paper towels. Meow. Okay, fine. Sorry, everybody. Trouble wants you to watch him eat. I'll be right back, Trouble. I gotta grab my coffee. Well, here I am. I guess you're gonna be needing more food soon, huh? I need to start a pot of coffee. See, that coffee I have right now, I microwaved some of yesterday's coffee. I'll be ready to return to the live streaming action momentarily. Just let me do this couple of chores like poop, watch the cat eat, make pot of coffee. And there. Okay. Well, now I have to get more paper towels because I can't make coffee without paper towels. Okay, I got more paper towels. These are Bounty paper towels. Let's see how they work as coffee filters. Okay. All right. Yes, that's you. That's you eating. What a good boy you are. Yes, Daddy knows. Alright, that's enough watching you eat. Well, why said enough of our lives watching you eat, mister. Is Andre's 3000 wants to borrow a cup of sugar? Is that a Key and Peele sketch? They do some funny shit about Andre 3000. Okay. Now, we're finally back outside and ready to rock and roll. Alright. Let's see what's been going on in the old Chatteroo. Sammy Davis Jr. plays Andre 3000 in the biopic Hey Ya. That seems like a good interview. Alright, so let's finish that cigarette we started earlier. Ah, motherfucker, I got you. So anyway, what was I talking about before? I'm talking about something very important, then I had to poop. Hi, Mr. Man. Okay. Does everybody know what time it is? Woods and friends, do you know what time it is? That's right. It's cutlets time. It's time to put some cutlets out for the Woodland friends. Here's some cutlets, Woodland friends. I made cutlets for you again. And cutlets are your favorite thing of all. You like these cutlets and they're on the wall. So anyway, now all the cutlet loving varmints will gather. Now where did I leave my coffee? What the fuck? Okay. Sure, I know what you're saying. You're saying if loving cutlets is wrong, you don't want to be right. And I can't blame you for that. Nobody can. Okay. Morning bong rips. Morning bong rips. It's the morning now. It's time for bong rips. That's my take on Velvet Underground's Sunday Morning. You know, it just feels good to get into a routine where you get up in the morning, you use your Summer's Eve by Massingale, you have a cup of coffee, you douche again, smoke a couple bong rips. That's what I call a good morning. Mom, do you ever feel not so fresh? Sounds like you inherited my stinky puss, honey. That bong rip right there was a little bit stemmy. You could taste the stem. And yes, it's spelled STEM, but I'm not talking about science, technology, engineering, and medicine. I'm talking about the thing that a bud grows on, a stem, that kind of stem. Let's see what's being said here. Yes, I can honestly say that my TE has smoothed my way through life. However, I am going to dial it down some. Dial is my favorite soap. It shouldn't be New Groove. Because look, remember this. You're not fully clean unless you're zestfully clean. What are my thoughts on type rarity? I think some types are quite a bit more rare than others. Yeah, that's a blue jay. We get a lot of blue jays. For a second, I thought he was seeing. You're right, Winston. Another glass on the railing for later when I start weekends looking for them. For a second, thought he was singing Nationwide is on your side. For a second, I thought he was singing Nationwide is on your side melodies. No. Although, I do want you to remember Nationwide is on your side. If I stick my nose in the bong, will it smell like a fresh and clean summer's eve? No, it's not so fresh. Well, wake and bake is 3 words, though, not 2. Type rarity. Roast beef, ink pink. Um, mm, I don't know. Type rarity. I mean, some types are very much rarer than others. ENTPs seem to be a particularly rare type. But I say that only from my experience. I haven't done any meaningful data gathering on the subject. Hi, Jeremiah Fix. Okay, get to hear the morning routine of the neighbors. Mom gets up, begins yelling at the children begin yelling back. You know, they're a noisy bunch across the street. But, we were walking around the neighborhood yesterday and took a little walk, me and Rachel. I was noting, like, how close the houses are to each other in various spots and stuff. But we really got quite a good spot. We've got about as much privacy as anybody in the neighborhood has. We can see a couple of our neighbors, but obviously we can hear them. The sound really travels here in the mountains. It's weird. Have you looked at the satellite images for your neighborhood and house yet? No, I don't think I have. You mean like on Google Earth or something? I don't believe in satellites, for instance, Mom. I just have 1 acre. That's technically 0.99 acres. Why is it 0.99 acres? I mean, it's a neighborhood. There's like 200 customers back here in total. I'm not sure how big an area that encompasses, but from Triangle Road all the way back to Heights Cove, there are 200 PG&E customers. So right in this little neighborhood here, there's probably, like, I don't know, 50 houses. It's like we're up against the forest one street that way. So if we were on Snyder Creek instead of Snyder Ridge, we wouldn't have anybody on that side of us. The person who's got the best location in this neighborhood is the one at the very end of the street, and his driveway goes down the hill a little bit, and he's situated there as far that way as you can get. And so he doesn't have anybody that way of him because he's as far as that way as you can get. And he doesn't have anybody that way of him. So that's a pretty sweet spot. But you know what? He's got kind of a shitty little house. So I don't know. There are trade-offs. He's we've got one of the better looking houses around here. But not the best looking. which is probably good. You probably don't want to have the best house in the neighborhood. I think the best house in the neighborhood, I think there's a couple of really nice ones, but um, is Les's neighbor who doesn't even live there at all. They just have it as like a vacation rental, and then they stopped having it as a vacation rental. So now they're just it's just being managed by property management. Sitting empty. Mom was saying, I need you to get in the fucking car. uh, that woman's parenting skills are a little questionable. Not to be all judgy or anything. It's like I've never heard any kind of physical violence, so it's just a mom who doesn't like parenting very much. No, she's FI. She's super FI, that lady. I don't know, maybe ESFP or something, but definitely FI. When she yells at her kids, though, she sounds like my friend Liz yelling at her kids. It's like, you guys, will you leave me alone? You never give me a second of peace. Except, there's some thought that censors do not care if their career fits their temperament. Suits their temperament. Well, that's an interesting notion. I don't know if I agree with it or not. Why did I walk in here? Did I come in here for a reason? If so, what was it? I mean, 16 personalities doesn't test well for anything. It tested my daughter as an ENFP when she's actually an ESTP. It tests everybody's intuitive. It's got a huge bias towards testing people as intuitives because people who get tested as some purportedly rare type are more likely to purchase some stupid ass follow-up report thing explaining how special they are, you know. I mean, the thing is, maybe 50%, 40 or 50% of the people I type are intuitives. But remember, I'm typing people who are seeking out a professional typologist to type them, right? That's going to skew heavily intuitive. So I can't use my own data at all to determine overall population numbers about rarity, because probably close to half of the people I type are intuitives. But that's not indicative of the population balance. I don't know if I ever encountered another ENTP in real life. Well, I can think of one guy I encountered when I was in my 20s in AA who was probably an ENTP. But I mean, I don't know. We're quite rare. I can think of one I encountered in natural life. I'm talking about not via talking with famous people, because that's an unfair advantage, you know? Yeah, well, that's exactly what I've done, Money. It's very difficult to game my TI polar test, my SI polar test, my NE polar test. Those are the most difficult to game. But the thing is, it requires a human being to execute those tests. I could come up with Well, even then, you'd be able to game it if you were online at the same time if you wanted to. There's no way I can make a test that people couldn't cheat on that doesn't involve me typing them. But yeah, my SI polar test, my NE polar test, my TI polar test, those are ungameable. NI polar test is pretty reliable as well. FE polar test, a little less so. Yeah, well, I suspect that at the lower end of that range, or even lower than that. I've met one INFJ that I can think of in actual life, not related to talking to Spanish people. Um, I knew an ENTJ. Well, I mean, the thing is also, I've had some, and all the students I've had, right? I can count the number of ENTPs on one hand easily, you know, like David Dosh, Jeffrey, um, what's his name? Azad. Oh, that little girl. I forget what her name was. That's it. 4. I can count the number of ENTP students I've had over the many years of teaching. I've had 4. And I've had, I don't know how many students, right? I was a teacher, classroom teacher for years and years. You know, I've had a couple, I haven't had many INTPs, but maybe a few more than ENTPs. INFJs, it's hard to keep track of because they fly under the radar, you know. You're not going to miss an ENTP that you work with for any extended period of time if you're an ENTP yourself, like me. I can think back and know exactly which kids were ENTPs. So the Blue Jays are out in force as usual. They like to eat the cutlets. Sometimes you get like a whole flock of them out here. I don't know. The squirrels seem to wait till the Blue Jays go away to eat for some reason. I don't know if they're scared of the Blue Jays. I used to see many species of birds and squirrels eating at this buffet of woodland cutlets. But now it's almost exclusively Blue Jays. So I don't know what happened there. Did they take over? Did the other creatures become interested in other food sources? There is a lot of food available right now. The berry bushes are just thick with berries. We walked down the other side of the hill, and like I said yesterday, and the berry bushes there have even more berries than the berry bush on this street, up the street. And I haven't really spent much time looking for berry bushes. There's probably even more around, easily enough to be picked from, if one wanted to. I have picked from it already twice. I think when we go to the store today, maybe we'll get some heavy cream and we'll do berries and sugar and cream again. I'll make it because Rachel makes it wrong. You gotta make it just right. You gotta get the ratios just right. Because in life, if you don't have ratios, what do you have? That's an excellent question, Eric, says everybody. That's an excellent question. All right, let's get some of this fresh coffee, shall we? Who's in the mood for a cup of fresh, delicious coffee? How do you identify an INTV? What is their worldview like? Well, I don't know what their worldview is like exactly, but I can tell you how you can identify them as a student easily enough. They write, think, etc. like an ENTP, but they don't make a big show of it. And as debaters, they debate like water. They give you definitions that you can't do anything with, but that you can't really complain about either. They try to cover on app as little real ground as possible, so that there's nothing that they can have to defend. They also like to spike a lot. So they anticipate all their opponent's arguments and put as part of their framework, or I guess you could call it like, it kind of exists between framework and case level, but it's usually put in framework. Spikes. So they anticipate their opponent's arguments and put pre-rebuttals to their arguments, meanwhile keeping their app nice and lean so they don't have that much to defend. The thing about, if we're going to talk about worldview, quote unquote. I would say it's relativistic. Relativistic. Is that right? Relativistic? Is that a word? Here, look at the windows. They look nice. Get you a nicely lined up shot to look at. How does that look? That looks pretty nice. Because they've got 6-slot counter-valued NI and tool function NE, it means their fundamental operating procedure, their way of doing everything, is maybe, but maybe also, or maybe not. That's their operating procedure. Their nature is negationary. TI is a negationary function. It says, here's what's wrong with what you're saying. Here's why we shouldn't agree with that. So, for me, negation is a way of life, a way of doing things, but it's not who I am. I was my absolute values, consciously my extroverted intuition, in other words, standing out, being distinct, divergence, newness, novelty, creation, creativity, etc. Right? Those are the things that I have as absolute values consciously. Unconsciously, my absolute value is singularity, the truth. I want all these ideas to coalesce into something, some singular insight that resonates as true that I feel proud of. For example, the other day I had the insight that the easier a death is for the person dying, the harder it is for those left behind. And the harder it is for a person dying, the death, the easier it is for those left behind. That there's an inversely proportional relationship between ease of death and ease of grief. To me, that rang very true and insightful. I'd not heard it before. Somebody probably has said it, but certainly it proved true in my case with my parents' death. In contrast, INTP has their conscious absolute value, negation, not being wrong, instead of being correct, right? And they have their unconscious absolute value, being useful. However, this is difficult for INTPs. It creates a problem. Because they're SE polar. So they don't validate that on their own fifth slot absolute value very well. It's difficult for them to do so. This tends to make INTPs more self-loathing than ENTPs. But ENTPs are plenty self-loathing as well. Maybe that was some good stuff on Mystery Box of Smoke. For an ENTJ. For an ENTJ, it would work as their absolute value is utility, usefulness. Their unconscious value is negationary correctness, absolute value. And, that's one that ENTJs can uphold better or worse, right? Like, for example, Damon Gray made his MBTV channel, which is a great name for an MBTI YouTube channel, right? With the idea of utility, that this was a good business model, it was going to make a lot of money, and he was also going to inform people about typology, etc. He had gotten certified MBTI, etc. But ultimately, even though it worked, he left that game because I think what happened is he realized he was wrong. Like, he was too wrong about stuff, and or that it was too mushy or whatever he concluded, Their instrumental value, their way of doing things all the time, is condensing things down into a singularity, distillation of a singular truth. The name MBTV is a perfect example of NI Tool naming it a YouTube channel. Talking with famous people is also really a good name for a YouTube channel. It's just not a good name for this YouTube channel. So, it's got a lot of pop though, right? Talking with famous people, it's got a lot of pop to it. It's a good name. Now, if only I talked with famous people. So, anyway, any counter value as a consequence means they don't like a bunch of new ideas interfering with the purity and clarity of their NI ideas. So they don't really work. ENTJs and ENTPs don't work especially well together. Thank you, Winston Small. We work best when the ENTP is in charge, which is not what the ENTP or the ENTJ wants. Although, I worked well with an ENTJ boss when I was drinking. Being a drunk made me like compliant. But like I can think of a great working relationship I had with an ENTJ student. And she went on, she became a really good debater. Not one of my best ever, but one of those like kind of Buffalo Bills kind of uh, debaters who always got close and never quite won. Like the Jim Kelly era of Buffalo Bills. Anyway, you could see her video still. I think I still left that one out. Her name was what was her name? I didn't mix Tool and Polar, did I? Did I say Polar? I meant Tool. If I said Polar, thank you for the correction, Boba Fett, and I meant Tool. Would any be something like Scope Creep? Yeah, very much so. The problem with being an any DOM, but it's even maximally more realized as an any tool user, is like I saw this house on Zillow, I think it's called, and I was like, well, this one looks pretty good. I thought it looked pretty good enough to show to Delilah and Rachel. But Delilah and Rachel, who were both conscious and I, were like, feature creep. Yeah, feature creep would be a big problem with any person, right? So, okay, well, I mean, if it were a show that talked with famous people, I think it would be a perfect name, you know, if that's what it was doing. It's nice and clean. It explains exactly what's going on, blah, 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 blah. And it's not a name that anybody else had before. You'll note I don't have any numbers after my @ on YouTube. You got to consider a lot of factors when thinking about whether or not it's a great name. I mean, it's only not such a great name because I refuse to be what it says it is. Anyway, so the problem, like I was saying, is if neither Delilah nor Rachel had, but both of them were like, yes, that one, right? I would have just continued looking at houses of being unsure which house to get, indefinitely. Yeah, I heard about it. Yeah, I should pull us over for that. Rachel and I are planning on getting police outfits. And we're gonna start doing type police again. It's on a list of things. My doctor's appointment got bumped up to the 14th, so Hopefully, I'll have Vyvanse before the Johnny show, which I'm very much looking forward to. That should be exciting. Well, this isn't a typology channel, though. I mean, we're talking about typology right now. But Money asks the question, what's the dynamic between one's sixth slot and another person's seventh slot? It's fantastic. It's ideal. Because basically, you don't value what they're blind to, and they're blind to what you don't value. So neither of you critique each other as would happen if it were any other configuration, really. 6-7 is ideal. So 6-7 is featured in, for perceivers anyway, both duality and mirage. Intertype relations. Those are the names that socionics gives them. And I just use those names because why not? There's a little bit of a problem with the socionics intertype setup, which is to say, it doesn't account for the differences that pop up in some of the intertypes, but not all, between perceivers and judges. Well, it is it's in general a criticism function in the sense that you'll be critical externally of things that fail on that function's value, but you'll also feel yourself very subject to critique in that area, and you'll feel inadequate in that area yourself. You'll critique yourself about your failures in that area. It's what makes you mad at yourself. Sometimes it's called the critical parent, which is apropos for me because my dad was actually a TE Dom. So he was actually, my fourth and sixth functions, which are both areas where you personally feel subject to critique. In the fourth slot, it doesn't hurt really. You're like, yeah, I'm bad at that, but that's dumb. In the sixth slot, it hurts, right? Yeah, I fucked up. Oh God, I fucked up again doing that, and I'm mad at myself. No, you wouldn't be mad at others for using it poorly. You'd be mad at things that exemplify in the world, static things that exemplify it being done poorly. You won't be mad at it. You'll maybe criticize it, like, and maybe laugh at it or something. Like, there was this McDonald's that had this. They planted agave bushes such that if you weren't paying attention and or had too wide of a car, they would scratch the side of your car as you drove by them. It's like, oh my God. I never scratched my car on it, but I just thought, oh my God, this is such hilariously bad TE. So, right, how can we verify your work is a question that C.S. Joseph never wants to answer. That's in a nutshell of C.S. Joseph's problem, right? How can we independently verify what you're saying? It's not a question he ever wants to answer. Yeah, well, you also treat it as an enemy to some extent, right? No, I don't think so. Absolutely not, Money. In fact, any six is likely to say, okay, to the extent that we need new ideas, because I don't want new ideas because I'm NI tool, but to the extent that we need them, I'm going to produce them myself with it's also called demonstrative sometimes. It's the most conscious, unconscious function. Like, so Here's an example of 6, 7 working together. We might be watching something that's kind of tragic. It's ridiculous. The idea of a 10-second typing is absolutely ridiculous. Sometimes I can't get people in a whole hour, you know? That's a good typologist, is somebody who's telling you the truth about that shit, right? Well, I mean, if you watch any of my typing sessions, you'll see somebody who's got a complete, thorough understanding of that slop shit typing people. I ask questions like, what would make you more mad at yourself if you did meow or if you did meow, to check to see what 6 slot is. I'm checking, and then I find if everything's consistent, everything I'm checking slot wise and function wise, then it's easy to say you're this type. It's easiest to say you're a given type if you test positive for one of my 3 primary polar tests: NE, SI, or TI. If you test positive for a polar like that I can be definitive about because it's more or less ungameable, and especially if I spend some time confirming it. Um, it People don't necessarily like being exposed in their polar, although SI polar seems to care less about it than the other 2 polars. So I can't usually spend a lot of time verifying people's polar, but I spend enough to feel fairly sure about it. There's so many blue jays in the trees over there. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 blue jays right now. Anyway, they're not all on the wall right now, though. So, like the other function, which you can get very defensive about, is your 8 slot function. You can also get critical about it to other people. And you don't feel very confident about it, really. But you also feel very annoyed when anybody else messes with it. Because in your perspective, you've got it perfectly in balance, and the world overvalues it. It's also your most unconscious function, so you basically never remember instances of using it. It's hard for you to articulate. The thing is, what differentiates it from polar is like SI8. If I ask Rachel how certain part of her body feels right now, she'll try to look to some externality to answer the question. Like, well, I can walk fine, therefore my legs feel fine. you know, rather than just feeling what her legs feel like, because it's that unconscious. But she won't test positive for SI polar when I ask her a bunch of questions about the past and drag some details out of her. She'll reveal much more capacity for SI than will an ENFJ. And so if you know that, for example, that principle that how the difference between 8 and 7, then you've got a way to go, okay, well, you didn't test positive for polar, but let me see if maybe your 8 slot. And then I start checking for defensiveness in that area. Like, also, if you say, like, what makes you mad? If somebody tells you to go to bed, or somebody because you look tired, or somebody tells you to um, to keep in mind the victims of something. I don't know. I don't have a good other example to use. I don't normally ask it as this or that. I do, but
I normally don't do the same function. Like I would say, tells you to go to bed, or if somebody is rude to you at the store, what makes you more mad? And they'll say, well, if they tell me to go to bed, obviously, I mean, it's not their business if I look tired or not. Or if they say you should eat something because you look hungry, or it's been hours since you've eaten. I was like, no, that would annoy me too. um, and it's one of so it's like it's not definitive by itself. You have to then check a bunch of other shit. Okay, well, if that really is a slot, then this should test as fourth. That should test as first. This should test as fifth. You check all of those things to the extent that you can. Fourth and fifth, you can kind of tell for some of them because there's a fluency in both that's absent in either of the other kinds of functions. Because 4 5, it's like if your four is a knowledge function, your five is a knowledge function. If your four is an action function, your five is an action function. Okay. So right now, I'm continually demonstrating both NI and SI. Or NI explain a concept, then I'll SI give an example to demonstrate it. For example, Rachel, blah, 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 blah. You know, that's demonstrating fluency, more or less conscious fluency in both. The thing about the NI part of it is um, that just sort of happens when I wasn't looking, you know. I have no conscious understanding of that. The examples I feel much more because in reality, even though when I explain things, I start NI first and then go to SI. In reality, I begin with SI examples, generalize out, test to see if those generalizations are correct, and then eventually talk about it if they are, you know. So in that regard, it's clear that I'm conscious SI, not NI, you know. I need to experience things multiple times to draw conclusions about them. Whereas NI doesn't need to do that. It's one of the reasons why the more I talk about it, in other words, whenever I do live stream and people ask me questions about it, they prompt me to talk about it. Because unless people ask cognitive function questions or typology questions, I usually don't talk about typology. But when they do ask interesting questions, like we're asked here today, I think it was Money who asked this, who's asked a couple of these interesting questions, and someone else has asked an interesting question as well. Um, so I appreciate that. When I do answer these questions, over time, I'm experiencing again and again some of the same ground that I'm covering in these answers, and also some new ground that I'm kind of uncovering as I explain it. I have to hear myself explain it multiple times before it sticks, really. That's an SI conscious person. I'm learning as I'm explaining. Yes, I hear you. You don't like me standing up because you want to eat your cutlets in peace, but I want to be out here right now, so just get used to me and eat your cutlets anyway. Blue Jays like to yell at me about things. Oh yeah, future human. You also asked a good question. You're the other one who asked a good question. So the thing to remember if you're starting to learn about cognitive functions is 1, 3, 5, and 7 are absolute values. 2, 4, 6, and 8 are instrumental values. Now, having said that, 4 and 5 tend to be a mixed bag in terms of absolute and instrumental. In other words, one half of the fields, you experience that as absolute value. The other half of the fields, you experience it as instrumental, but you favor the fields that you experience it instrumental Because your fifth slot function is more valued as an absolute value than your fourth. So it tells you which fields are your absolute value. That's 4-5. That's the only complication in the absolute and instrumental value thing. Okay. Your fifth slot function defines which fields you hold up as an absolute value for both the fourth and fifth slot function. Is probably the best way to say that. Therefore, if you have TE fourth, that means you've got FE fifth, right? FE is the field definer. So the absolute values for you are external metaphysical and internal metaphysical. Probably external physical. I don't have it all worked. I don't have all the mechanics worked out like that for 4-5. But 4-5 is the only one that has mechanics like that. So, the rest of them, regardless, it's easier just to think of all the odds are absolute values, all the evens are instrumental values. When you ask people questions, by and large, you'll get those answers line up just fine like that, right? 4-5, if you are really specific in your questions, you can get false positives for absolute values. Like if you were to ask me questions about how much I enjoy a hot bath or going to bed or whatever, I'd say, well, if I'm feeling cozy, it feels wonderful to get in bed and roll around and say, right. That might be misconstrued as me expressing SI as an absolute value, but it's not. If you ask better questions, more questions, it'll be exposed as an instrumental value. Anyhow, let's go inside where the deer and the antelope do not roam. I'm tired of deer and antelope roaming all over me. I'm sick of it, you hear? Sick to death of it. I don't want any more deers or antelopes roaming over me. Stop roaming my baby. Stop smelling my baby is one of my long-time hits that I really enjoy, even though that's the only part of the song I can think of. And it goes like, stop smelling my baby, stop smelling it now. Something like that. Stop smelling my baby. Another one of my more recent hits is, please don't boil me alive, don't boil me alive. I'm not even 5 times ready enough for that. Please don't boil me alive is a real hit. Narcissistic tendencies tend to pale when you hold them to every word that's said. Oh God. Well, the good autopilot doesn't test that as excellent, right? It's good for you. You have to remember the perspective as well of, is it good from a third party's perspective or is it good from your perspective? So your 8 slot autopilot is good enough from your perspective. Although you'll fuck up on it sometimes, you know. My SE is not great, but it's good enough to sustain this YouTube channel, putting up videos all the time for how many years now? Quite a few. From a third party perspective, you might call that excellent. But if you were to watch me in my daily life trying to get things done and procrastinating all the time on little tasks, I'm really bothered by this morning's conundrum, right? This is, I guess you'd call it demonstrative, almost conscious TE. I need to go fill up the gas cans. And the reason I need to go fill up the gas cans is because Thursday we have a power outage that's scheduled from 8 to 2. So I'm going to need to run the generator. I also need to fill up the little wilderness car. Unfortunately, my regular car, is also only at 2 bars of gasoline. So I need to fill that up. I need to fill up the car with 91. I want to fill up the gas cans with 87 because it's cheaper. And the other things besides my car do not need 91. But I'm afraid that, and I think I'm correct to be afraid about this, that if I try to use my bank card twice at the gas station in a row, it's going to put up a fraud alert. So I think what I'm going to do instead is yeah, that's fairly accurate, money. That's fairly accurate, okay? But it's also worth noting that you tend to view evil in the world as coming from the excess of or misapplication of your 8 slot function. And the reason for that is because, for example, you know, SE is the other action form besides NE. But SE and NE get in the way of each other. NE wants to talk more about the possibilities. SE wants to just decide on what the thing is and do it, right? So when NE's operating, it's getting in the way of SE. When SE's operating, it's cutting off the possibility of NE to continue doing its stuff. So there's an inherent conflict there, right? And that's true between each of the kinds of functions. When you're thinking logically, you're thinking from a disinterested perspective, you're using TI, you're thinking from a third party's perspective. And when you're thinking with FI, you're thinking from your own personal interest perspective. They're inherently in conflict with each other. SI and NI are also inherently in conflict with each other, although it's harder to explain why. Like SI is, I'm going to look to my previous experience to inform me about what's happening now. If I'm doing that, then I'm not using my intuition to intuit about what's happening now. It's just the best way I can put it, right? And then TE and FE, same thing. If I'm focusing on utility, I'm not focusing on being a team player. Being a team player is making sure everybody's involved and everybody's doing their part. Yeah. TE efficiency is not about being a team player. It's about figuring out the unique logic of things rather than figuring out how your actions are impacting other people's feelings, right? So because of those inherent conflicts, you tend to see evil as the over application of your 8 slot function or the misapplication of it in the world. I'm feeling a little over coffeeed. Like my stomach's a little bit like, okay, that's enough coffee, Eric. You might say I'm feeling a little queasy. Is there an E equals MC squared shorthand for the typology you talk about? Well, I have yeah. It's I guess high compression because it's a Mini Cooper, but it's not a very sports car. But nevertheless, it says in the manual and everything you're supposed to only put 91 in it. And I think in the past when I may have one time put not 91 in it, I could definitely tell. Because if I hadn't tried it one time, I probably would doubt the legitimacy of it. I don't have very good internet yet, but soon should be. Yeah, that would be a good example of FE8. In that case, an FE person would be like, I care a lot about their feelings, so I'm going to be nice and chat with them, even though I want to get out of the car. A TE person would probably just get out of the car and say, like, okay, well, I got to go. Hello, J versus Z. Who wins? They're both great dynamite performers. Who wins, J versus Z? ENTP is kind of like being Z. Yeah, you're rare. Well, why does that make it? What is that good for? All you can say is like zebra, Perez. You know, there aren't very many words that start with Z. Z is not very useful, right? Oh, but it's rare. It's Z. Yeah, well, it's also like the letter you could most do without. That's what it's like being an ENTP. It's like being Z. People are like, I want to be Z. Why? Why do you want to be Z? Why, Melissa Talks, do you want to be Z? Why, C.S. Joseph, do you want to be Z? Why, Club ENTP, do you want to be Z? Being Z is not good. We bomb islands with nukes for research is textbook TESI. Well, we gotta experience it to know what it's gonna be like. Let's go blast for shit. ESTJs came up with that plan, okay? That's definitely ESTJ stuff. That's third slot NE TE down SI tool. I can come up with things we don't know about nuclear bombs. We don't know about these things because we haven't experienced them. I can come up with tests that would allow us to experience them. Therefore, we should do it. That's right there. You've got a TE dom. He's at work. His job is general in charge of nuclear bombs or whatever. He's trying to do a good job of being effective, doing my job and learning about nuclear bombs. You know, that's how I got to be a general, because I do my job so effectively. Now, learn more about nuclear bombs. Okay. Well, what can I come up with in my fun third slot NE? Well, I don't know. We never know what happens if we bomb a nuclear bomb at the North Pole. What happens if we bomb a nuclear bomb at the bottom of the ocean? I don't know. We don't know yet. What happens if we bomb a nuclear bomb like on top of a mountain? I don't know. I've not seen it happen yet. Okay. Now, TE, you haven't figured out a way to make it so I can look at it so I can know what happens if you blow up a nuclear bomb on an island where there's a bunch of boats nearby. Lots of submarines, and also like some pinatas, everything that might be blown up near an island is put around all around the island. We'll put boats of all different shapes and sizes. We'll put dummies of people on there to represent people. We'll put some rafts. We'll film the whole thing. And we'll find out afterwards. We'll go look at the boats and see how blown up they are. If they're super blown up, then we know if you drop a nuclear bomb on an island near a bunch of boats, they're going to get all blown up. That's the reasoning that went behind the United States nuclear testing program. It's like putting Tiffany in charge of nuclear testing. What about all this, radiation stuff? Yeah, that's why we gotta blow it up far away from us. Okay. Still, is Nevada far enough away from us? Well, it's out in the middle of the fucking desert. Okay. What about all this fallout and stuff? Just don't do it on windy days. Stop being such a puss. It's like we're up to here, it's like we would barely blow up any nuclear bombs. That's true. I mean, like the Russians are doing it. Okay, well, good for the Russians. Let's emulate them as hard as we can. Although, to be honest, that probably played a fairly large role in ending the Soviet Union. They just couldn't afford to keep up with the arms race. Okay, fine, you guys win. We spent all these monies on nuclear bombs and a bunch of other stupid shit, and now we're broke. We don't have a real economy, so fuck. What are we gonna do? there are no good arguments for animal rights. We have responsibilities towards animals, but that's not because they have rights. To have rights, you have to be capable Peter Singer is an absolute fucking disgrace, okay? So let's just not even go there. You need to operationalize your definitions. To have rights, you have to be capable of moral agency, which is to say you have to be capable of fully informed consent. And animals aren't capable of fully informed consent, therefore they don't have rights. Rights are also, they also require you to respect rights. They equal accountability. They require, it's not that rights are greater than accountability. Rights confer accountability onto individuals by making your own rights subject to forfeit should you violate the rights of another, right? So animals obviously don't adhere to any of the responsibilities of a moral agent. Like my cats keep killing lizards and other little things that I don't want them to kill, but they don't listen to me. Yeah, Peter should have stuck to singing. Yeah, according to Peter Singer, we all have a positive obligation to charity until everybody's equally poor. He's a disgusting disgrace to the field of thought, reason, intellectual discourse, and everything else. Well, rights confer duties. This is the most important thing to remember about rights. This is how to operationalize the definition as well. A right is that which confers a duty onto another. Okay? That is the definition of a right. A right is that which confers a duty onto another. Yeah, he's basically utilitarian. But utilitarianism is not a moral calculus. A moral calculus is one that tells you whether or not something's a moral or immoral act before you do the action, not predicts whether or not it's going to be moral, and then you find out afterwards by measuring the impacts. That's not a moral calculus, for fuck's sake. That's a moral performance review. So the thing is, every good thinker is a deontologist. You can't have a utilitarian perspective for a moral calculus because it requires you to measure impacts. And there are infinite possible impacts you can measure. And invariably, the measurement of impacts, when used as an attempt at justifying something, breaks down to simply justifying the means with the ends every single fucking time. And you need to, it disrespects the order of questions. The first question is legitimacy. The second question is effectiveness. You have to do it that way. Otherwise, you find yourself planning a bank robbery because it will effectively get you all a bunch of money because you've not asked the question of whether this is a legitimate way to get the money first, right? The order of questions must be respected. Utilitarians disrespect that order of questions and cause all the harm in the world. We have to flatten this curve, right? The number of lives saved per dollar. You cannot measure that shit. Like, I was told that by staying inside during these lockdowns, I was saving lives. Well, how many lives did I save? You can't answer that question, right? How many lives were saved by the COVID lockdowns? Is an impossible question to answer. And yet, the fact that somehow it saves lives is put out there as a justification for inhibiting everybody's liberty in extra legal fashion. Remember, like all these lockdowns were not done by legislative decree. They were done by elected and sometimes unelected officials just arbitrarily making decisions for their locality. Whether or not it was within their jurisdictional power is unclear. It's like it was absolutely ridiculous. And that's what happens when utilitarianism is allowed to operate as though it were a moral calculus. It's just justifying your horrible means with your bullshit ends that you're predicting, right? Yeah, and it's really post hoc or propter hoc impact analysis as well. That's an excellent point, Money. It also boils down to, well, and then hey, we implemented the school lunch program, and look, the level of the standardized test scores from the school went up by 4%. Therefore, our school lunch program showing real results. Shit like that. That's an example of what Money calls post hoc ergo propter hoc impact analysis. That's exactly what you should call that. Okay, I've never heard that before, but it's exactly what you should call that. That's money right there. Good job. You get back. That's so money. I'm giving you not one but 2 wonder points. You just earned 2 wonder points. Okay. It's not Wednesday. Point values are not doubled. Only on Wednesdays are point values doubled. So it's going to have to be satisfied with 2. If it were tomorrow, those 2 would have been doubled and you would have 4 wonder points, but it's not the case. It's Tuesday. You'd get 2 wonder points on the Tuesday, so that's pretty twofold. Yeah, all that utilitarian shit is predicated on the false idea that you can answer the questions regarding effectiveness before you answer the questions of legitimacy, and also that you can use post hoc ergo propter hoc impact analysis after the fact to justify that what you did was correct. These are the things in the world that makes Eric go nya 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 nya. Here's another thing that makes Eric go nya 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 nya. Look at that horrible mess. Eric, you're a horrible mess maker. Time to clean that mess up. Okay, let's get cleaning up. I got a dustpan, and I got a little broom. We're gonna sweep all these cigarette butts into a pile. Like that. Go over there, you come over here. You guys as well. Okay. Now let's go to the trash cans. Actually, it's just, I closed the garage door already. Okay, so let's go to the trash cans then. So anyway, yeah, Peter Singer's the devil, and everybody should hate him. That's my message to you, Rudy. A message to you, Rudy. Stop your messing around. Oh, better think of your future. Oh, stop your messing around. Oh, else you wind up in jail. So look, I was standing right here about, I don't know, like here, smoking a cigarette, and I heard these noises the other night come from right here. It sounded like something big was walking right here, moving around. The neighbors' dogs were barking. The neighbors were shining their lights around. And I came out the next day and I saw, see all that grass pushed down right there? I think it was a bear, and he was mentally making his way through the grass. But when I startled him, he sat back on his haunches and pushed back all that grass right there. That's my hypothesis. It's not really a hypothesis because there's no way to test it to prove it to be true. It's more just a notion, a speculative notion. That's my speculative notion. Well, you know who also gets a wonder point? Whoever it was who said, "Easy, Eric, I know you're a deontologist." That person also gets a wonder point, okay? Whoever that was, you get one wonder point. You know me well. I don't like utilitarianism at all, and nobody else should either. It's horrible. It's the devil masquerading as a moral calculus. Oh. Now, see, that's bad TE right there. The side door is locked. I've already closed the front garage door, and I have to put this back. I have to open the front garage door again. Well, there. On the other hand, keeping the twanger right here, which I've begun doing, is good TE. This is very good TE, because then when I need to get into the garage, I just push that button. It's right there. And the reason it's good TE is because if I'm anyplace else than right here, I'm almost certain to go into the garage through the inside door of the house. Or through the side door. If the side door is locked, and I went in through the inside door of the house, there's a possibility also that I could lock myself out of the house if I can't get back in through the front door of the garage. So it's good to have the twanger right there. I don't know what kind of bear it was. The kind that didn't attack me. That was nice. Probably not a grizzly bear. I don't think we have any grizzly bears around here. Lucky Swine, you are speaking truth, my friend. You are speaking a lot of truth here in that last statement of yours. Utilitarianism always looks attractive to policymakers. Cost-benefit analysis is almost universal, and public policy initiatives and almost universally flawed. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's fine once things pass a legitimacy test. But the problem is that legislative bodies don't do that first, by and large. They don't include in their advocacies even framework arguments as to why it's legitimate or if it's legitimate or address those questions at all. You know? And that boils down again to people not respecting the order of questions. No, it was not a polar bear. It's almost comically small. With the amount of grass pushed down. Oh, my broom. I was on to bears at that point. Which system is more needed in overhaul? Education or healthcare? Which smells worse, cat shit or vomit? That's a tough question, that boy Klaus. Tough question. Well, I think healthcare is a bigger threat to the economy. So I'd say probably that. That would be an easy enough fix. You need to get rid of compulsory education after grade 6 is what you need to do. And any public funding for education after grade 6. I think grammar school's fine. I'd say after grade 5, really, but I'm willing to compromise and go to grade 6. That'll solve all your education problems. Keep your elementary schools as they are, even though it's imperfect. And have everybody graduate from public schools or publicly funded schooling after 5th grade. After that, it depends on the parents and the kid. People say this is going to create elitism. No, it's going to create meritocracy. Excellent question, Money. Right. The problem is education has become accreditation. And, after grade 5, it's no longer about itself. It's about performing well so you can meet the criteria for this next hoop to jump through, so you can meet the criteria for the next hoop to jump through, etc. And it's not student driven. It needs to be student driven. What does the student want to learn about? What are they actually interested in? What are they actually good at and what are they actually bad at? Let people focus on their strengths. Stop making them try to remedialize everything that isn't in their wheelhouse. Remediate, I guess I should say. Mm, maybe even remedy. I'm not sure what the right word there is. Remedial. It's like remedial stuff. If they need to be in remedial whatever, why are they studying that thing at all? So that's my proposition. It's like children are the only people in society who we still treat like slaves. Isn't that horrible? Children and incarcerated prisoners. Let me correct myself. Those are the only people in society we still treat like slaves. Incarcerated prisoners, it would be fine if only people who actually committed real crimes were incarcerated. Well, I guess it depends on what type you are, money. For me, that's not the case. So when I learn a foreign language, for example, I want to learn all the grammar first, and then I'll stick in the vocabulary as needed. It's not how it's ever taught, right? It's taught like learn how to say things first and figure out why you're saying them that way later. But for my personality type, I want things, I need the highest level first so that I can understand why it is I'm doing this and how it fits into other things, big picture. I'm that kind of thinker, you know? Um, Other people don't want that. They can't process that highest level kind of analysis as meaningful in their own lives. And therefore, they the majority of people are censors. This is why education has switched to a very sensory kind of oriented approach. Like it used to be when intuitives were running education a long time ago, like let's say language arts, there was this belief in whole language education that the way people pick up how to read is just by being read to and reading a lot. And then they'll just figure it out. Because that's how intuitives do it. Certain kinds of intuitives, especially. The more language focused you are, the more that's how you operate. But other kids, they didn't succeed under that pedagogy. And so there was the majority of people didn't. So they switched over to phonetics, sounding out words and stuff. Which I didn't need at all. But most students did. I didn't need to sound out words to understand what the word said, just to be able to read the word, because I'd been read to growing up, and I read as a little kid even. No, I mean, first of all, you, based on the definition of rights, there's no possible way to confer rights onto animals. But we can talk about positive moral obligations and responsibilities, some of which, the thing is, we don't have universal positive moral obligations uh, as a rule. Okay, we have particular positive moral obligations based on the contractual stuff, like agreements we make with people. But it's reasonable for society um, to confer a civil obligation onto people to treat animals with a certain amount of dignity. In other words, laws against cruelty to animals are perfectly reasonable because it's an area specifically where government has to make laws because a rights calculus is inadequate to deal with animals. If we just treat animals purely as property, we are doing something that intuitively is morally apparent, um, morally reprehensible. Uh, so, put it this way: if we treat animals simply as property and nothing else, then it makes morally permissible things that intuitively are morally abhorrent. So, no, I'm not saying I didn't learn at some point the sounds of the letters. I'm saying I had already learned to read before then. That was not a way to teach me to read. Um, and I didn't learn to read by sounding out words. I was looking along as my mom was reading aloud to me, I guess, and just learned words like that. Um, so the thing is, we have laws that protect things that we value that are not covered by rights. In other words, it's outside of their jurisdiction. Rights arguments have their jurisdiction. Things that aren't covered by rights arguments are things like environmental protection laws. You know, rights arguments don't protect something we value as a general community value. And that thing is right. Money, you and everybody else's most effective learning is like that. When you have an actual problem you need to solve, and you need to learn something specific to solve it, and you then seek out the information and learn it at your pace, which is either faster or slower than average. It's not a good way to learn things in a classroom, given the many preferable ways you can learn things nowadays. Uh, money, you are so on the fucking money about everything. Where did you come from? Why are you so right? You get another 100 point. You earned it. How can you be so right about everything? I'm not used to encountering this. He says learning math bottom up is profoundly retarded, like the Karate Kid jack on, jack off for 15 years. What a great sentence. I am just loving that sentence. You know who's profoundly retarded? People who are profoundly retarded. When I started working at, what is it called? East St. Gabriel Valley, PAU. The population I worked with, some of the documentation still referred to them as profoundly retarded. Pretty good, huh? The thing is, we have a reality to deal with as parents that's different than a reality we have to deal with as a society. The reality we have to deal with as parents is for kids who aren't being forced to do stuff that we deem productive by a school. A lot of kids will just play video games all the time, you know? They'll do what they want to do. And it's not really like what I would deem wholesome play of the sort that I did. I mean, which has its own definite downsides. A bunch of unsupervised children set loose into the streets to play with each other while the parents are busy cleaning or whatever is a recipe for its own kind of craziness and disaster. My very unsupervised childhood resulted in all kinds of weird nonsense. But yeah, hey, I lived through it. So did all my friends. Isn't that a nice view? Doesn't that look pleasant? Wouldn't you like to sit here? Doesn't this seem like a place you'd like to sit? It seems like a place I'd like to sit. Or would you rather? Could watch the birds. They'll come back in a second. I'm sure there's still some cutlets there. They couldn't have finished all those cutlets that fast. I think this is a nice review. That looks like a place I would like to sit. I think I will sit there. I'm going to smoke the broken cigarette. So I'm just going to take this part off. I'm just going to smoke this part. Ah, what a nice view, huh? I have to talk a little louder because the microphone's way over there. I'm going to get a lavalier mic. I should do that today. Should buy a cordless lavalier mic. From my foldy phone, folds in half just like a dome. Foldy phone, fold for me, fold tonight. We will see a folded thing, fold in half, open up. Wow, look at that, it's a folded phone. Yeah, I got one of those foldy phones. Pretty cool, huh? I guess my foldy phone song drew away like 4 people. I don't blame you. It was pretty terrible. Okay, now make it into the bucket. This is always a challenge. It's not very far away. You'd think it would be easy. I made it this time. I missed at least half the time, maybe more than half the time. That's just, one of the challenges I have to face and overcome every day. Thanks to my disability, cigarette dropping ineptitude syndrome. This is why I need to receive a disability check from the government. Well, charging into the fog of war because you're told to is the reason. You'll get in trouble. That's the reason. It's a horrible reason, right? It's just because authority is going to get me in trouble if I don't obey. My parents will be mad because I got a B or whatever. It's that kind of horrible extrinsic motivation. There was a study that showed that in every instance, extrinsic motivation reduced intrinsic motivation on average. Now, I bet for TE DOMs it doesn't work that way, but for everybody else it does. Extrinsic motivation, even positive extrinsic motivation, like I will pay you to do this, reduces intrinsic motivation. So, like, I might be interested in typing you and want to type you. But if then you pay me to type you and I have to type you, then I won't want it. I'll still do it. I'm more likely to do it, but I'm less likely to want to do it. If I'm dancing and you go, let me pay you $10 to keep dancing for another 15 minutes, and the next 15 minutes of dancing will suck. So extrinsic motivation, for most people, it will consistently reduce your intrinsic motivation to do something, no matter what that extrinsic motivation is. Think of the fact that torture that we're putting everybody through as children. And then when we grow up, instead of realizing, oh, fuck, that was torture, I'm not doing that to my children. We go, oh, you have to go through the same thing I went through. I'm sorry it sucks so much. It's like nobody learns from their own experience that school sucks ass. Do we not all remember how much we hated school? How does it still persist? Do we have this group of people out there remembering school and being like, I loved school. It was great. I loved getting up every morning early at an arbitrary time that is not when I want to get up. And I'm carrying these things in this bag on my back. I just love it. I like getting on this bus that smells like diesel fumes. And then, having to deal with that horrible kid in the class that hates me all day long. I love it. It's wonderful. We are bringing it back, Boba Fett, okay? Rachel and I are going to bring it back. We're going to order a police costume today. I'll probably get a lavalier mic too. I wonder if I could get like a pair of lavalier mics that go with the same thing. That would be useful. It's like one plug-in thing that has two different lavalier mics. Basically, it would be like a stereo thing, but I'd like it to mix it so it's not just each of us on one channel. I wonder if that exists. Can anybody who's good at figuring out if that exists, knows what I'm talking about, figure out if that exists? You're convinced the school system is designed as a tool to help erode the bond of the nuclear family? That is ridiculous, new group. Ridiculous. School was originally, when America was founded and people spread out and shit, and they founded some community in Nebraska, they were all just farming. They all had some children, and they said, you know what? We want our children to be better educated than just dumb dirt farmers. And we can't do that job ourselves. We're too busy. Let's collect together some tax money and hire a school marm to come, and we'll build a one-room schoolhouse, and the school marm will send all of our kids to school, and she'll teach them stuff that we don't even know and can't possibly teach them because we love our children and we want them to be better educated than us. That's how it started, right? It made sense in that context. it no longer makes sense, but it's become institutionalized stupidity. The reason it makes so little sense now is one primary reason. Jeremiah Fix and everybody else. Okay? New Groove, and everybody else. There's one reason it's been rendered horrible and useless for sure by one thing: the internet. Okay? I grew up before the internet. Both my parents worked. School was a better alternative for me than just being left at home all day, with my friends also left at home all day, except for the couple of people who had both parents at home, one parent at home all the time. It was a better alternative, to go to school. People had to do something with their kids during the day, right? They couldn't, there was no way they could rely on the internet to allow their children to educate without having to go to some centralized location. There was no better way of dealing with shit back then. Okay? The reason it feels like it was designed or whatever, yeah, is because now with the internet, the horribleness of it falls into increasingly stark resolution. There's the better alternatives are so much better, less burdensome on the kid, less burdensome on everybody. There's zero reason to have schools anymore. But that's because of the internet. Schools used to also have in general this sort of originally or more so a longer time ago, this notion of we need to instill discipline into children like the military does, which is of course just horrible in its own way. So TE Domish. Well, I just think that the world's outgrown primitive ways of socialization. And the population is so massive that individuals, individual families end up forming their own small group associations with other people with kids that are same age, etc. It's just a very different world than classroom education emerged from. And it's a deprecated institution. Healthcare, on the other hand, we have a structural problem economically with. Healthcare itself is obviously not deprecated, just as education itself is not deprecated. But, similar to doctors becoming increasingly deprecated by people being able to do their own research, uh, but they'll never be completely deprecated because the amount of information and the kind of information they know is too hard for most people who don't like the specialized language and etc. Teachers will never be entirely deprecated because
for me, like one of the best ways to learn something is to just be able to ask an expert a bunch of questions and have them answer it for me. Because at this point in my life, anyway, I have a clear understanding of what what areas of the world their expertise links to that I'm interested in. I have a pretty good understanding of what I don't know. Well, I'm talking about, look, the thing is, parents in a new paradigm, most most parents would, keeping in mind that we're retaining grades 1 through 5 grammar school for the same reason I articulated before. Parents need time during the day to do their shit, and kids need to be taught basic shit like grammar school shit. Okay. The classroom, therefore, is a good way to enable parents to have their kids supervised during the day, which lets them do their shit, right? Um, Once a kid is of 6th grade and up age, then there's an expectation that the parent will arrange what they see fit for the kid, you know? That the parent will set up a schedule of online classes that the student has to attend. Now, what if the parent can't force the student to attend those things successfully or whatever? Well, then that's a parenting issue, right? I mean, you need to work out some kind of responsible agreement with your kid. Yeah, we do need those hats. I know. If somebody would just invent a hat that could tell you correctly what type you are, I would be so grateful. It would put me out of typology business, sure, in terms of typing people. But I could still like explain what it means to be a certain type. But I would be so grateful because then we could fix so many problems in the world. What's Wharton? I don't know what Wharton is. No, SE DOMs get to, it depends on their tool functions, right? So ESTPs, are great lawyers. I mean, good lawyers. Not great, but good lawyers. They potentially uh, are good business people, entrepreneurs, shit like that, Have them go to business school. ESFPs, they do great in the military. ESFPs do great in the military. Um, ESFPs might go into some kind of performing kind of a thing. Maybe sports, maybe drama or something like that. Stuff that they're going to like. The thing is, it's hard to say for FI types, especially for FISI types, what they're going to actually like. If I don't just go to therapy right from the beginning. INFPs, part of their curriculum is going to therapy. The other part of their curriculum is learning how to be a therapist. The point is, I don't think we should do like career tracking by type like that. I think we should let students' authentic individual interests help parents guide their education accordingly. It's there are so many individual factors and particular factors for this thing that really the only thing you can meaningfully do with typology is say, don't let them take mya. You can do that, right? Like, don't let those NE polar people do debate. Don't try to make them do debate. Don't let them do debate, even if they, for some reason, crazily want to. Don't try to make them write a story in English class. That's ridiculous. Or don't try to make them do the assignment that's going to be on the quiz for Chloe, which is just like pretty much impossible for her, which is write a unique sentence that you make up yourself for each of these vocabulary words. Her sentences are always going to be like, Julie was melancholy. You'd be amazed just how much any polar is like that. I'm not exaggerating at all. I have worked with this girl for years, and I worked with plenty of other polar students as well. They don't have any extroverted intuition. You can't train them to have it. You can't teach it to them. And it's like, Chloe's mom basically wanted for a long time wanted me to fix her extroverted intuition polar. But I knew about cognitive functions, so I kept trying to explain to her, you're not getting this. You cannot teach your daughter to stop being NE polar. It's not possible. She will never be able to do these things. It's not because she's dumb or not creative or any of these other negative words you might put upon it. It's because she's extroverted intuition polar. It's her blind spot. It's her place of least resistance at all, which means when this happens, she's just going to feel like exposed, have no defenses, and just be like, I guess I'm just dumb. Well, sure, even TI polar people will periodically appeal to fairness while failing to note the inconsistency with their appeal with something else they just made, right? I mean, if we had a hat that everybody agreed definitively proved type correctly every time, then you could let market forces naturally do the work. There'd be, unfortunately, there'd be a industry of classes popping up that would claim to be able to solve people's polar, but they would eventually be proved consistently just scams, and eventually there'd be legislation prohibiting that. And debate schools would be prohibited from admitting NE polar people. It wouldn't be a problem with debate because that's actual competition. You have to actually succeed to claim you're succeeding. Normal schooling is just teachers schmoozing parents and pretending like they're teaching things. Yeah, people do tend to naturally gravitate towards what they like and are good at, which seems to coincide with their dominant tool. Like I ended up in debate and was on the newspaper staff in high school. Those are pretty NETI kind of things to do. All right. I'll tell you what another NETI kind of thing to do is.
Or at least, let's just say it's an Eric thing to do. Pull a bong rip. That's right. If you guessed pull a bong rip, you guessed correctly. All right. Now, it's time to play What Happens When Eric Goes Tinkle. Let's find out. Today, while I'm going tinkle, you guys can look at this hat. Okay? There. Isn't that nice? I believe several chatters, I think it was Money, New Groove, Winston's mom, Boba Fett, all had mentioned at some point that they'd like to spend some time looking at a hat while listening to me urinate. It was also mentioned at least by one of those people. So I thought, okay, that's enough demand. I'll go ahead and comply. Here's a hat. And hold on, let me scoot around so you can hear it better. It's almost musical, isn't it? It's like a liquid symphony conducted by my penis. I think we'd all agree that's a fair and accurate description of what that sounded like. A liquid symphony conducted by my penis. Oh yes, kitty, hello. Oh, Mr. Man, you're such a good kitty. Daddy's gonna get up now. No, I didn't wash my hands. And let me tell you why. It's because, I guess that's one times. It's because my penis is clean enough to do surgery on. If anything, going pee makes my hands cleaner. Well, You know, read the Giver, New Groove. Read the Giver. What if people make bad choices? Well, hopefully they get reincarnated and have another chance next time. I don't know. I made a lot of bad choices in my life. Some of them had worse consequences than others. Mostly I've been lucky. Mostly my bad choices haven't incurred consequences that maybe. What was that sound? What was that sound? Trouble, was that you? Did this hat move? Was this hat like this before? Or was it pointing straight at you before? That would be super fucking paranormal if this hat moved. Was this hat like this before? Or was it pointing like this? I don't know. I seem to remember it pointing straight like that, but I guess maybe it was like that before. I can check that on the videotape easily enough. Okay, you eat your food. You don't need us to watch you. God. Will you guys watch him for me for a second? Oh, yes, Mr. Man. So that I don't have to watch him. He seems to be satisfied with just you guys watching him. Oh, yes. What a good man. What a good eater you are. Look at you eat. How much of my life am I going to spend watching this cat eat? That's really the question. But he's so insistent, and it's hard to just to continue ignoring his meows. Makes you feel bad, you know? Oh, Mr. Man. Generalissimo Signor is another possible name for that cat. I tell you what was kind of spooky was when I did the terror polls for me and Rachel yesterday. We each got the same first 3 cards. What are the odds of that happening? Hi, kitty cat. What's going on? Would you like to go outside or would you like to eat food? This cat, oops, likes to go outside when Trouble's eating. Trouble likes to guard the cat doors to like prevent her from getting in and out. So when I'm here, she'll usually have me let her out the back door. What a dick he is, huh? Yes. You're generalissimo dickhead. Please don't be such a dickhead. Trouble, please don't be a dickhead. Trouble, Cuppy, was my kitty first. And you. He constantly twitches his tail, Boba Fett. That's all that cat does. He twitches his tail every time I pet him. Every time he's sitting on my foot, he's asking for pets, looking up at me, his tail's twitching away. Then he'll rub up against me and twitch his tail against me to make sure I'm sitting where he thinks I am. He's a very weird cat. There are certain times when he lets us pet him and likes us to pet him. One of those times, for some reason, is when he eats. The other is when we're in bed. Another is when I'm going to the bathroom. He sits at my feet. He wants me to pet him. The only time one of those where he's not switching his tail is in bed. But he's very clear in his communication about what he wants. If you pet him and he doesn't like it, he will look at you. If you look like, if you pet me again, I'm going to scratch the fuck out of you. And if you pet him again, he'll scratch the fuck out of you. So, that cat, he never lets you do anything he doesn't want you to do on any occasion. He likes it when I talk to him when he eats. Okay, Boba Fett, he's like you. He enjoys the sound of my voice. Who wouldn't? This pleasant voice, this pleasant baritone, musing about the matters of the day, explaining nature of human existence to people, doing everyday things every day. People, a man who makes others feel like, hey, it's okay. I'm like this guy. He's a loser too. Yeah, welcome. Welcome to the party. I also am doing nothing on a Tuesday morning. Cool. Let's hang out. I got some coffee. I got my bong. I got some weed. Let's hang out and party. Tuesday morning. It's almost 9:15 already. Jesus. I gotta smoke more bong pretty fast. That's what it is around here. It's like people on the East Coast are kind of thinking like, well, I could watch this or this soap opera. What do I want to watch? On the West Coast are like, well, Price is Right is coming on pretty soon, but I guess I could watch this guy until then. Well, I want to thank you for watching this guy because this guy is me. And personally, I think I've got just so much to say. So many things that you need to hear. Things like, hey, you're okay. And things like, there's nothing wrong with you. You're fine. Just the way you are. God made you just the way you are for a reason. Because you're special and important. And God loves you. See that light right there? Right there? That's the light of an angel of God saying, I love you. You can trust in the light. Don't trust in the devil. The devil is bad. I'm teaching important theological lessons today. Sometimes directly at the camera, sometimes just affording you a peek of my cheek, sometimes a nose and an eye, sometimes almost a whole face, and then peekaboo, I'm gone again. But the audio is changing. All of a sudden, it's getting louder, clearer as the microphone gets ever closer to my mouth. Now, you're getting tingles down the back of your neck. Why? Because this is ASMR. Which stands for ass sadomasochistic reaming. A lot of people don't know that's what ASMR stands for, but it does. People often say, I wonder what it would feel like to watch a live stream from a revolving restaurant window, where the live streamer was stationary, but I was sitting in the revolving restaurant, going around and around. Well, this is what it would be like. It would be like this exactly. Now that you've experienced it, you get to know. That's called SI wisdom. Now I know what it would be like to sit in a window seat at a revolving restaurant, outside of which sat a live streamer in a chair live streaming. Your experience would be a lot like this. Hey, there he is again. There's that live streamer. Remember we saw him last time we turned around in a circle. Yeah, I remember him. I wonder what he's talking about. I don't know. We can only hear him when the window passes by him really clearly enough. And, now that we're talking over here on this side, I can't hear him at all. Well, he's on the other side of the restaurant, outside. So it's no surprise that we can't hear him right now. But wait, I think I'm starting to hear him a little bit. Yeah, I guess we must be getting closer. Wait, yeah, no, yeah, it's definitely him. I'm beginning to hear him. Yeah, me too. I can almost make out what he's saying. Oh, there he is again. Oh, now I can hear him. Wow. Watching this guy live stream from my window seat at the revolving restaurant is just so wonderful. It makes my food taste so much better. Yeah, mine too. I love revolving when I eat. I always said that one of the biggest problems about eating in a regular restaurant is that the view out the window, it doesn't really change that much. And sure, like cars might drive by or whatever. You're just always looking at the same street. I said, why doesn't this restaurant turn around in a circle so that my window seat view, I get every option for all 360 degrees? Even if some options are bad, it's still better than having just one option for the entire meal. Oh, wait, there he is again. There's that live streamer. Wow, I wonder if you think he's talking about the revolving restaurant? I wonder. So that, my friends, is what it would be like if you were watching me live stream from a revolving restaurant. Okay, I hope you enjoyed it. I've been working on that performance now for 6 years, so it's pretty important to me. It's pretty important to me. I'll just leave it at that. Um, No, Moonpig did not make that up. The restaurant at LAX used to spin. It used to be a revolving restaurant when it first opened up. At LAX, there's this pointy thing. It kind of looks like the Space Needle because it's got a big round part on top of it. That's used to be a restaurant, and originally it spun around. Let's look up the story of LAX's revolving restaurant now. LAX's revolving restaurant. All right. First of all, let's look at some pictures of the building that it's in. This is the building. I've seen this building many times while going in and out of LAX. This building is very familiar to me. This part here used to be a restaurant, okay? I think right here the glass is all broken. But it used to be a restaurant. Now, let's learn more about the history of what is known as the theme building. Okay, the theme building. The theme building is a structure at LAX considered an architectural example of the space age design style. Here's a bigger picture of it. Looking pretty space agey. Okay. Influenced by Populux architecture, it is an example of mid-century modern design movement, later known as Googie. Googie? I'm curious about that. I want to see other examples of Googie. The distinctive white building resembles a flying saucer that has landed on its four legs. The appearance of the building's signature crossed arches as homogeneous structures is a design illusion created by topping four steel reinforced concrete legs extending approximately 15 feet above the ground with hollow stucco covered steel trusses. To counteract earthquake movements, the theme building was retrofitted in 2010 with a tuned mass damper without changing its outward appearance. Let me see if I can find something about the restaurant. It opened in 1961. Originally, the restaurant rotated slowly, giving the visitors a 360-degree dining experience. However, it is now stationary. And the Encounter restaurant closed for business in December 2013 with no future plans to reopen. It doesn't say why it stopped rotating. But it does mention that it slowly rotated. Let's Google why did it stop rotating. Why did the restaurant at the theme building stop rotating. The restaurant did, in fact, rotate when it first opened, but that repairs were too expensive. So that stopped. Hmm. Guess that's the explanation for it. Huh. Well, I guess that's the only explanation. Let me go back to that one and see that link. The iconic Los Angeles encounter restaurant at the LAX theme building. One of my vintage project resolutions for this year was to get out and go on more field trips to iconic places in Los Angeles. While this trip for this post took place back in 2010, I thought it was appropriate to use since we no longer have the option of going back. You may have heard this week that the Encounter restaurant closed on December 31st with no plans. This is from 2010, I think. With no, 2013 maybe, sorry. With no plans to reopen. Encounter, located at the iconic theme building in LAX, opened in 1997. While the restaurant had not garnered iconic status prior to its closing, the theme building, which opened in 1961, most certainly has. Let's see if I can find the part of it about it rotating. On Encounter, I'm so sad to see it go, and it was so perfect in this space. The theme building was built to resemble a Spanish saucer. Looks like a cool space, actually. I've never been there. But, so this says there are contradictory reports about whether or not the restaurant was originally designed to slowly rotate, giving designers a 360-degree view of the airport and the surrounding areas. Some sources claim the restaurant did, in fact, rotate when it first opened, that repairs were too expensive, so that it stopped once it first broke down, which was almost immediately. And others claim it never actually rotated. But I choose to believe that the first group of diners were able to dine in a rotating restaurant. How fabulous that must have been. Interesting. Very interesting. It looks like a really cool space. I'll show you. It's not this anymore. This was back in 2013 what it looked like. But check it out. I think you'll enjoy what I'm looking at. Okay, so here's the picture of that. Here's LAX in general when you drive into it. Encounter restaurant. Got this restaurant elevator. Looks pretty crazy. Looks like something straight out of the Jetsons, says this guy. It sure does. Wow. Pretty cool looking, huh? Well, closed down, so you can't go there anymore. Don't even bother trying. Now I'm curious about Googie architecture. Images. Let's look. This is called Googie architecture. I'd never heard that term before today. Today I learned. Today I learned that this is Googie architecture. TIL. Like, I know where this Norms is. I think I've even seen this car wash before. This is great. This is so cool looking. That's cool. Tuscan in. That's cool. There's the theme building at LAX. That's cool. I like it. This Bob's Big Boy over here. Oh, look at this. This is a Coast 76 station. That's neat. Southgate Shopping Center. Hmm. A lot of this stuff is in LA. I recognize some of it, you know. Hmm. Well, that's interesting. Oh, this is on La Cienega. Warren, Ohio Drive-In Movie Theater. Bob's Coffee Shop, Burbank. Johnny's Coffee Shop on Wilshire. See, a lot of this shit's in LA. This Las Vegas sign. This is in New Jersey. The Caribbean Motel in New Jersey. Aw. Let's see. One of the earliest organizations in the country that advocated for the preservation of Googie architecture was the Los Angeles Conservancy Modern Committee, which was formed in 1984 in response to the demolition of the Ship's Coffee Shop in Westwood and Tiny Naylor's Drive-In in Hollywood. Huh. The architect Michael Hasu designed restaurants for Austin-based restaurant Pete Terry in the Googie style. Googie architecture developed from the futuristic architecture of streamlined modern, extending and reinterpreting technological themes for new conditions in the 1950s. While 1930s architecture was relatively simple, Googie embraced opulence. Hess argues that the reason for this was that the vision of the future of the 1930s was obsolete by 1950, and thus the architecture evolved along with it. During the 30s, streamlined trains and Lincoln Zephyrs had been advanced technology, and streamlined modern paralleled their smooth, simplified aerodynamic exteriors. That simplicity may have represented the Depression era's forced frugality. The eye-catching Googie style flourished in a carnival atmosphere along multi-lane highways and motel architecture, and above all in commercial signage. The influence of Googie was prominently seen in the architecture and signage of Los Angeles and Las Vegas circa 1945 to 1970, where many of the same architects who designed Googie coffee shops in Los Angeles went on to design some of the seminal hotels and casinos in Las Vegas. Private clients were the main patrons of Googie. Ultimately, the style became unfashionable, and over time, numerous examples of the Googie style have either fallen to despair or been destroyed completely. Well, that was interesting. That was so interesting. So, basically, security killed their restaurant. Wonderful. So, thanks, TSA. Thanks a lot, TSA. It's spelled Googie. Moonfei 11. Googie. Googie. But if you're like me, you've never heard the word or seen it before today, or have no recollection of having seen it or heard it before, that would be a great like crossword word. I'm sorry, not crossword. Scrabble word. It's got 3 G's in it. No, 2 G's in it. 2 O's, an I, and an E. People will be like, that's not a word. You'll be like, yeah, it means space age architecture from the 1950s. They're like, ooh, wow, you know a lot of words. All right, now I have to pee again. I wonder if YouTube's going to bust me for repetitive content because I keep peeing. I like my chocolate chip cookies gooey. I like my architecture to be googie. And when I hawk, I'm going to hawk a loogie. My name is Eric Strauss. There. I made up a little poem / cheer for you today. I want my chocolate chip cookies gooey. I like my architecture to be googie. And when I hawk, I want to hawk a loogie. My name is Eric Strauss. So you guys work on that for a while. I'll be back to check on you in a little bit. See if you've got the cheer down yet or not. Practice saying out loud in front of your computers or telephones. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Eric, how can you possibly pee so much liquid? Like, where did it all come from? I don't know either. I think I peed a whole bladder full of pee like 30 minutes ago. I'm sorry, were you practicing the cheer? Did I interrupt you? Sorry about that. Oh, you want me to say it again so you can remember it better? Okay. I want my chocolate chip cookies gooey. Sorry, let's start over. I want my chocolate chip cookies gooey. I want my architecture to be googie. And when I hawk, I want to hawk a loogie. My name is Eric Strauss. Okay? So, if you have to hear it again, just rewind the video to hear it again. I don't want to be reminding you over and over again like that. You need to learn something, okay? You're not learning hard enough. Learn harder. God. Wait, hold on. I'm zipping up my modesty pants. There. Now my modesty pants are properly affixed. It's safe for me to return to the live stream. Okay, so I am going to actually end the stream now. Call it a stream, call it a day on streaming. It's 3.5 hours of stream. That's pretty good. Job, Eric, for that. Almost like you don't have amphetamines, except you have no amphetamines. If you did, you probably gotten some productive shit done instead of this. All right, I love you all very much. I appreciate your follow and productivity with me. Joining me today in an unproductive fuck around was a wonderful, wonderful gift to me. I appreciate your participation. So thanks for being here, and don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.